Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, Saber-Toothed Licker, written by Son of Nobody. Akitl was admittedly not paying terribly close attention to the pair of children chasing each other in circles around on the grass a few meters away from her. She had her communicator unit held in her main manipulator. Her two central eyes focused on it, and was composing a natal day message for her mother. The honoring of one's female parent was a long-held Kliskit tradition, though doing so specifically on natal days was something that she had picked up from humans. They were good occasions, though. They weren't tied to a specific belief tradition, so no offense could be given if a child or a parent had changed their belief tradition, and one had to pick a day or two out of the year's turn somehow. A natal day was as good a day as any to pick. She input a few more lines, her antenna held down as she struggled to find appropriate phrasing, her 4 secondary eyes fixed on the running children, but her attention definitely elsewhere. Her recently pupated offspring, Pethys, had been playing with Emily, the 3-year-old human girl, for several months now without any major incidents. So Akitl had stopped being quite as watchful nervous when the pair were together. Besides, Emily's father Steve was right there, helping keep an eye on the 2 children. Really, there wasn't that much to be worried about. Humans were bizarre creatures, shockingly reckless, with extremely strange ways of finding enjoyment. But they weren't super Kliskian. They were mere mortals, and in some ways rather fragile. Their soft epidermis was astonishingly easy to damage, to begin with. Akitl remembered the first time she'd seen Emily skin her knee, as Steve had called it. It had been quite alarming. She'd been certain the child was savagely injured, but with internal fluid, a bright, shocking red even, leaking from the surface. But the girl had hardly seemed to mind. She'd gotten a brief swabbing with a sanitizing cloth that Steve had produced from a bag he carried over his shoulder at all times, and a small bandage that didn't even fully cover the leaking area placed over it, and then a kiss better on the injury from her father, after which she cheerfully raced off to play again as if nothing had happened. Kliskit were far more difficult to damage externally, though of course if something did crack their exoskeletons, it could be catastrophic. Steve had nodded when told this, but then startlingly noted that most human children fractured their endoskeleton at some point in their development. He himself, he said, with something almost like pride, had managed to break both arms at once in his youth. He'd also told her, with pleased interest, that scientists of his species were studying the Kliskit exoskeletons, seeking to artificially produce similar substance, as they were made of a material far stronger than the chitin found on superficially similar but much smaller animal species on their native world. So humans were actually, if anything, a bit more fragile than Kliskit, which made their impulsive willingness to throw themselves into danger all the more remarkable. With a shake of her antenna, Akitl returned her attention to the missive on the small screen in front of her. Suddenly, a sharp sound, a kind of high-pitched yip with a trailing click, made all her eyes instantly snap to where the 2 children were playing. That hadn't been a pain sound or a danger call, but it was a sound of shocked surprise, the kind of sound that something happened just before a danger call, or even worse, when something so fast and deadly had attacked, there was little or no time for a danger call. With a rush of fear pheromones suddenly thick around her, Akitl sprang to all 4 feet, seeing Pfizer lying on the ground with Emily bent over in a positively predatory posture. What had the girl done? Steve waded into the situation before Akitl could decide if she should, and he towed Emily off of the young Kliskit who, much to Akitl's relief, climbed to his feet and with a puzzled buzzing, seemingly unharmed. Steve, though, was once again scolding Emily, and after a brief telling off that Akitl couldn't quite hear, he gently took Pethys by the main manipulator limb and urged him towards Akitl. Emily, pouting again, dragged her feet as she was also towed along. Pethys, amiable as always, just walked at Steve's side, his antenna indicating only curiosity. As they got closer, Akitl heard Emily saying, "Daddy, I was only playing Saber-Toothed Tiger. It's okay." Confused, Akitl got to her feet, having alarming visions of an admittedly carnivorous human child deciding to inexplicably try to predate her own offspring. "Steve, what happened?" Steve sighed deeply and sighed. "Emily licked him." Akitl blinked, her mind wrenching to a different track entirely. As far as I know, there are no compounds in the exoskeleton of Kliskids that are toxic to humans, and Pathiz is generally cleanly. Steve chuckled and shook his head in negation. Oh no, I'm not worried about her. She licks all kinds of things, most of them much dirtier than your son. No worries there, just, well... He gave Emily a complex look, and the child looked down at his shoes, seeming chastised by it. She does lick all kinds of things, so I have no idea what else she might have licked today. And human mouths are dirty places to begin with. Akatal angled her antennae to indicate confusion. I do not think any diseases are transmittable between our species. No, but bacteria can grow anywhere. I know it probably wouldn't do him any harm, what with the handy exoskeleton he has, but I don't want him getting some kind of bacterial joint rot or something. And like I said, I have no idea what else she might have licked recently. Oh, Akatal found herself suddenly at a loss. Bacterial joint rot was actually a thing that could happen, especially if one had been engaged in activities that might leave microabrasions around the joints, like, say, being chased and pounced on by a human child. But now she was very much at a loss about what to do next. Taking Pathiz to a doctor just for getting licked by a little girl seemed absurd. Steve apparently correctly interpreted her baffled set of Akatal antennae, because he began rummaging around his bag while saying, It's fine. I think I know what to do. Just, how are Kliskid with the application of alcohols? Like externally, not internally. Akatal found herself flicking her antenna upwards in something close to laughter, contemplating the complete and total insanity of the phrase externally and not internally with regards to alcohols, and said, It'll do him no harm applied externally. I'll just sanitize the lick then, and all's well. Steve bared his teeth in a gesture Akatal recognized as meant to reassure, and set about opening a little packet with a sanitary wipe in it. Thank you, said Akatal, sitting back down on the bench and pondering how in the galaxy a species that spent its development years licking everything even survived. Once again, she found herself thinking that humans were very strange indeed. End of story. Story number 2, Unexpected Help, written by Z of Swear. Our species has always been proud of our aerial capabilities. We are born with wings and learn at an early age how to use them. But there is a period when our younglings have just hatched but still haven't learned to master flight, when they are vulnerable. This is usually the time when the serpent people, our sworn enemy, make their attacks. Apparently, they find our younglings' flesh a delicacy. Disgusting creatures they are. One day when I came home from food gathering trip, I found our oldest child outside our home, on the ground, out in the open, exposed. And in the distance I could see that one of the serpent people was heading our way. Our youngling was too heavy for us to lift, but wasn't strong enough to be able to take flight by himself. We felt panic slowly rising. Now, you must understand that we are a fairly primitive species. We are aware of others who are more technologically advanced and have a lot more knowledge than we are capable of. These species are usually not very interested in us, but random exceptions have been known to occur. Therefore, we were very surprised and very happy when a four-legged creature came walking in on its hind legs as they usually do, with a curious expression on its face. We assumed our panic-stricken chatting had caught its attention, and when it saw our youngling on the ground, the alien carefully went down on all fours, cupped the front feet, weird, I know, gently around our son and slowly lifted him up to our nest. We thanked the creature with all our hearts. We realized that we don't understand our language, but we hoped body language and sincerity would do the translation for us. I'm not sure I'd understood. It bared its teeth in a threatening manner. But on the other hand, it went back on its hind legs and walked away. So maybe we misinterpreted the assumed threat display. We are, after all, talking about an alien and technologically advanced species. Anyways, we're glad that our paths crossed when best needed their help. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons: Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, Dragzoon WRE, Holly Sister, Ambrose Cattell, and Quantum Wednesday. Thank you very much.